What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And today is actually the day that we're recording this, 4/19, is the 2-year anniversary of our very first episode of Stay Hot. So, Matt and Theo, we can give ourselves a round of applause, pat on the back.
Yeah, let's go.
And thank you all the listeners for keeping us around for 2 years. It really does mean a lot. Today we're going to be discussing the NBA playoffs and some of the NFL headlines that came out, the Jalen Hurts contract, some certain guys demanding trades, whatever. We're going to talk about all of that. But before we get into things, make sure you all subscribe to the YouTube. Again, it's been 2 years. Make sure you guys keep subscribing to the YouTube. Keep us around for at least 2 more years, hopefully. And yeah, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Stay Hot on YouTube for exclusive videos from Theo, Matt, and myself. But Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today? This beautiful Wednesday evening.
I'm great. I've just been reflecting on the last 2 years all day, just replaying every moment back in my head.
What's your favorite moment, Theo?
Oh, who's to say? I think my favorite moment, I liked anytime that we go to LA, I think is my favorite moment
or Vegas.
Hanging out with, when we can go somewhere in person and hang out. I think that's all my best moments when we're just off,
when we're just
covering summer league and like Duncan Robinson invites us to go play craps and then we can't find him in the casino.
And then we get invited to the
Gronk party that was like at 11. It's like at 11 a.m. And like we're like, dude, we're getting breakfast. We can't go to. I mean, we can go, but you'll have to like hold up a little bit.
Our boss is like, "Well, you guys aren't going to be there." And we're like, "No,
we wanted to. We wanted to go.
But we had to record.
We had to
record.
Get breakfast." I don't know why it was so early in the morning, but anyway, yeah, I was just thinking about that all day.
Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing good. I'm a little bit tired because it's late at night, but
yeah, I'm
all right.
Would have been better if Bron had pulled through for the Lakers.
It would have.
Unfortunately,
Matt's texting us in the group chat. If the Lakers lose, if LeBron loses, we're not recording.
The Lakers have lost the series 1-1.
And it's over.
Advanced to the next round. We'll get into the analysis of that game later, but first let's touch on some NFL headlines that have been going on around the league.
I think we should start with the Jalen Hurts news, his contract extension. I think that's probably the biggest thing, making him the highest paid player in NFL history at face value, at least. The guarantees are obviously less, which does show, Theo, you've talked about this on TikTok about how it's pretty clear that NFL owners are getting away from fully guaranteed deals, but it's still I think a good contract for Hurts.
I think that there's two things that you've got to consider, and that's what it means for the quarterback contracts around the league and Lamar's situation and what it could look like going forward. And also just, did he deserve it? Those are kind of two separate conversations.
Yes.
And yeah, the owners have successfully made Watson an outlier. It seems like Kyler is the de facto mark to beat now. That is what Hurts barely edged on. He reset the market if Kyler was the top of the market. And I really think that after that deal was signed, the owners all talked and said, if anyone wants this kind of deal, we're not giving it to them. Like, we just don't want this to be the norm. We don't want the market to get reset any higher. And I wonder when that decision was made, if it was made, if Lamar was even the guy they had in mind, and he just happened to be the first guy to do it. And they were like, no, that's not happening. And whatever player that is, it probably would be Lamar based on the contract situation, I guess. So there's definitely that. But yeah, I think it was very important to them that that mark does not get surpassed. And that's why Lamar's not having any interest. And that's why Hurts didn't reset Watson's market. He reset Kyler's. And he, I think, deserves it because he took a real leap last year. It was not that he was just carried by the weapons around him. Those weapons hadn't all been there before, but it was certainly a good offense. And he just wasn't playing as good. He wasn't as accurate. He wasn't sticking in the pocket as long. He wasn't attacking the middle of the field or down the field in quite the same way. And this year that all came together for him with elite precision and footwork and timing and all of it, everything you want. So to say that he's not going to do it again next year when, yes, Steichen is gone, but all the weapons are still great, all you're doing is betting against yourself and having the price go up higher and higher. So I think last year he did prove that he was a guy worth locking into, and that's the market price. And they managed to avoid, I mean, if we're talking about it like a good deal for the Eagles, they managed to avoid, the Watson marks. So they'll still have a little bit more wiggle room than Cleveland. Sorry, Blaiden.
I do think it's interesting that Brown's Twitter is still trying to defend that Watson deal. They're like, no, he's like the 5th highest paid quarterback though. He's like per year. And I'm like,
doesn't speak well to the Ohio education.
I'm just like,
they think it's the 5th biggest.
It's because that graphic came out, the PFF graphic, and it's like highest paid quarterbacks based on average annual salary. And everyone's like, see, it's not that bad, guys. And then you look at his cap hit is 64 million. And I'm like, that's the only number that matters. That is the only number that matters is the cap hit.
I don't know if that's totally true, but I guess I don't know enough about how the whole process works. But at any rate, I think that it does give the Eagles some immediate wiggle room. I believe like his cap hit, it's a bit backloaded. So you've got that. And I don't know. I just think the price for him was only going up. I don't think he'll fall back down to earth. I think this is really the guy he is, and the Super Bowl performance really cemented that for me. So, yeah, might as well get the deal in before Burrow and Herbert sign.
Right, Burrow. Burrow's going to be the next one, next domino to fall. But
are we all in agreement here, or
Matt, what do you think?
For all of us?
I don't know if the owners got together and made some secret agreement not to give out fully guaranteed contracts, or if they just don't want to.
I don't think it was like a cabal meeting.
It's really expensive.
I just think like they were all understood like that was a rogue move somehow.
Hive mind.
Outside of that, I think, I like the Jalen Hurts deal a good amount. I think he's worth it. I think he's legitimately very good.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, speaking of other quarterbacks, let's talk about Trey Lance. 49ers have been receiving some calls about potential trades involving Trey Lance, and teams seem to be under the assumption that Brock Purdy will continue to be the starter next year, which isn't like completely unreasonable. They were still very successful with Purdy, under center. Theo, we were just talking about Aaron Rodgers and how, we're like at this. I mean, that deal still hasn't gone through. Is there a world in which we could see Trey Lance for Rodgers?
I have a question, I guess. I'll spin this to you.
Okay.
Do you have more faith in Trey Lance or Jordan Love going forward?
Oh, that's tough. Jordan Love hasn't
today. Forrester on Twitter. I've got to shout it out. But what do you guys think?
The only thing you could say I guess in favor of Love would be that he hasn't been hurt. He just hasn't played. Yeah. But like if we're going based off prospect, who did you like more as a prospect? And I would say I probably preferred Lance, but then again, I wasn't like when did Love come out? Was that 2020 or 2019? I don't know. It was
2020 draft. He was the same year as Burrow and two in them.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, what about you, Lance or Love going forward?
Love. I mean, Trey Lance's team is currently trying to trade him, and fans don't expect a first-round pick. The Jordan Love's team is currently trying to trade away somebody so they can start him. I think that speaks volumes about them. Like, I don't know. My general thought about stuff like this is like when you see a Trey Lance trade where it's like that doesn't make much sense. Teams, for the most part, especially a good team like the 49ers, are not just like stupid. They're not just dumb. And I'm a big believer in if teams are trying to trade away a guy they spent 3 first-round draft picks on, maybe trust them a little bit. Now, it doesn't mean I'm totally out on Lance or that I think it's a bad deal if one of these teams like Detroit or Washington or Atlanta go and trade a second or a third round pick for him. I don't think that's a bad deal at all. But I think I have a little bit more faith in Love just maybe because his situation's better and he's on a team that he can trust.
Yeah, I think that my issue with Lance, I would take Love. And I loved Lance coming out. And I still think that he can be good. But he was a one-year starter in college in 2019 or 2019. And then the 2020 year.
Stumbled.
Yeah. And then the 2020 year, he sat out for COVID. And then 2021, his rookie year, he obviously was on the bench the whole year for Jimmy. And then he tore his Achilles. No, it was an ankle injury. He broke his ankle.
He broke his ankle.
So he was this really raw prospect that hasn't gotten a chance to get. I shouldn't say he was a really raw prospect, but he was from a lower level of competition and his completion percentage was down there. He was good at some other things, but he always threw it a bit too hard. He didn't have much touch. And there was some like a couple mechanical issues with like his release and his head bobbing up and down. So he needed game reps. Like he needed to get ironed out. He was so raw in terms of the amount of football that he had played.
Right.
And it just hasn't happened. It's like, I like Richardson now, but if we fast forward, 3 years from now, and he's not the starter of a team at any point in those 3 years, you'd be like, well, what is all left here? Like so much of this time to grow has been, and he has been growing through practice and whatnot, but game reps are a bit different. So I do worry about him more now than when he was a rookie. And I think that's a valid concern. So I would take Love, but I also don't think they're going to trade him. I just think teams are honestly probably curious on what Lynch thinks of him and are calling to like find out what would it take. Maybe the answer is obscenely high, but it doesn't sound like they're calling teams. It sounds like teams are calling them and they're picking up, which is just the smart thing to do. You got to know your options.
Yeah. You always answer the phone.
Yeah, I would still lean towards they should keep him and start him, but he's in a very tough spot now. He has very little wiggle room with Purdy right behind him.
He's got to really get off to a hot start because Purdy, it does not sound like he's going to be ready for week 1 of the regular season. And it sounds pretty perfect, right? Like, it's not good that Purdy tore his elbow or had to get Tommy John's or whatever it was, but it is kind of a silver lining that, okay, we have an excuse to see what we have in Trey. Well, Purdy gets ready. Like that is a good, it saves us a very awkward winner and loser training camp battle, right? It kind of makes things a lot easier for us. And Lance has really got to make an impression. Otherwise, it's probably over for a team that's contending right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if they were also trying to really like move him, you probably would have heard news about this before like a week out from the draft, But who knows?
Stranger things have happened for sure. But one thing I can tell you is a Rodgers for Lance trade isn't happening. You've handed the keys to Jordan Love. You drafted him. He's gotten better, and that's the decision that you live with. You're not bringing in anybody who you'd think might be better. You had a higher grade on.
Is the Rodgers to the Jets trade ever going to happen? That's the real question. Because at this rate,
I think there's a lot of debate between Jets and Packers Twitter on like who has the leverage, and I think it's the Jets, man. Mostly because Jets fans should sour on this idea faster than Packer fans should. Packers fans should kind of be grateful there's anybody offering you anything at this point after you have this guy who almost retired and is coming off a down season and is in age 40 after we've seen Russ break down after 1 year and Stafford break down after 2. Like, I just don't know why like the 13th overall pick was ever in the Packer fans' public psyche's mindset. Like, we are not getting the 13th overall pick for dude. Okay. So the Packers should just be happy he's not retiring and they're getting anything for him. Okay. And they can't let that go away.
Let me ask you this. Would you be okay if Rodgers, or do you think the Packers would be okay if Rodgers just retired though?
I think they'd be okay. But it would kind of stink that you had the opportunity to take whatever the Jets deal is, and then you just overplayed your hand, and then your goods perish. Sounds like a terrible thing to say. Your goods retire, your asset retires.
Yeah.
So I think like the Jets can talk themselves into the Rodgers trade is a bad idea and not worth all this, more than the Packers can talk themselves into this is a bad trade, because the trade has to happen. There is no talking to yourself into it's a bad deal. It's your only option to get anything. So yeah, I think like eventually the Packers have to just take what the Jets have offered, even though the Jets have Zach Wilson as their starting quarterback. Like they've got a lot of young talent. They could maybe survive that, and with like a Heineke or a Bridgewater tier guy, if they can find him. I don't think everyone would get fired. I don't think everyone would get fired if they have like a similar season to last year because the Rodgers deal fell through.
Who is more likely to get fired? The people in Green Bay if Rodgers retires, or the people in New York if they are incapable of bringing in a quarterback?
The Jets, and that's a good point, that at the end of the day, the Jets do have like are sitting in a riskier position, so maybe that cancels it out. But I just think like, I don't know. As a Packers fan, I sometimes see Jets fans really, really excited that they're getting Rodgers, and I'm like, I don't know if I would be that excited after he took a little bit of a step back at his age. Like I would wonder if he's
Zach
quite
Wilson
good
play
enough.
Football, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think the Packers are going to get what they want. That's just the sense I get. But
maybe, I guess that's fair. Matt, where do you stand on leverage?
I don't know. It's probably about even. Maybe that's the answer.
That's why it's taken so long. That's a pretty safe bet,
right? I think if you're the Packers, there's a lot less pressure on you, though. It's kind of whatever if they trade him. It's like, okay, well, if it's just for a second round pick, then like, I don't know. For the Jets, it's like, this is our entire quarterback plan. And sure, it's like the only way you can get a second round pick for Aaron Rodgers is through the Jets. But the only way you can have a serious starting quarterback is if you trade for him, if you're New York. Now, which sounds scarier to you? So I'll actually go the Packers have more leverage.
That's not a bad
I don't think
point.
they're going to get a first or anything. But it's like, dude, the Jets have to make the trade. The Packers want to, but it's like, dude, the Jets like have to do it or it's entirely over, you know? Who did they sign? They signed somebody, right?
They signed Lazard. Lazard.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking a quarterback. Did they sign anybody else at quarterback?
They signed Boyle, an old Packers backup, who, if you have ever had the chance, you can go.
Look, they already have all his friends, too. They've spent $100 million on Aaron Rodgers' friends, so they better actually go get Aaron himself.
They didn't get Odell, though.
They got Lazard.
That's true.
I think maybe you're right. I don't know. It's so tough to tell because the expectations were pick 13 for so long, and like maybe they didn't have that much. But it seems like their current offer could be a first next year if Rodgers doesn't retire after a season, and you know that's not nothing. I don't know. I think it will involve just future seconds, and it will happen after the draft. I think eventually Rodgers will be like, "Come on, guys," and they'll just be like, "Whatever." I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
there's the fun of choking another team out. What's more valuable, a second round pick or the assurance the Jets can't be a contender? Like that's just one team out of the 32 that you don't have to worry about anymore. Would you pay a second to just unlimit? What's the highest draft pick that you would pay?
What is this what is this sadist behavior? I'm just watching the Jets suffer.
No, like not in your division, somewhere else. Is it worth a second round pick if you just know one of the other teams contending for the Super Bowl is fucked? That might be the mindset. That might be a killer mindset that GMs have that I have not been thinking of.
Just not even a team not in your division, a team in the other conference.
Like, yeah, we're getting a second round pick or a future first. Okay. But I'm also giving you what you want. I'm giving you a chance to win the Super Bowl. And I'd rather you not have that and have your second round pick. I wonder, like, just one team out there, like to cripple them that badly, is that worth that pick? I think it might be. I'm kind of talking myself into the Packers shouldn't take a lowball deal. I've changed my mind.
That is a vicious mindset.
That's what you got to have, though.
That is vicious.
I hope that's
and
what
evil.
Gutekunst is thinking.
That is vicious and evil.
Right. It's worth you keeping your pick if it means you don't get the get out of jail, potentially, maybe not free, but you get a chance. I'm selling you a chance that's worth everything because you don't. Yeah, you're right. Packers shouldn't take a low ball deal. They're in full control of the situation. All right.
Well, now that we've got that out of the way, we can talk about the last two guys that are trying to get traded, and that's Budda Baker and Devin White. And Theo, I want to talk about this poll that you put on Twitter, where you asked people if they would rather have Devin White or Bobby Wagner. And I think it's kind of a tough discussion. It's an interesting discussion, but it is an overwhelming favor of Devin White, which to me is remarkable.
Yeah, I have it all 22 coming out on Devin White. That'll be up soon.
Okay.
So I think that there will lie kind of your answer and like of what Devin White is, but it's just a funny poll because they're kind of opposites. One is this vet who's limited by his athleticism at this point and has to be in a very specific role. And then you've got Devin White, who is in a very he does a lot of things on that defense. He has to cover a lot of ground with their blitz looks and dropping from coverage and whatnot and moving sideline to sideline. Like he can do all that. He just doesn't quite know what he's doing. So they're a little opposites. And I thought it was kind of an interesting poll to run. But yeah, I won't talk about Devin White here because I'm making a full video on
fair
it
enough.
for YouTube.
Fair enough. But Budda Baker,
he's a dog. I think that I'm more interested in just what the Cardinals will look like and like how bad they could get without Budda Baker.
Yeah, I mean, they have like zero talent whatsoever. I think, is Budda Baker requesting a trade over like some contract stuff, or is he like, you guys just suck so bad, I'm out?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you're going to be paying me this little, I would rather, I'd rather play for not the worst team ever assembled.
Yeah. They're pretty bad.
I think that he'd be good value. I think that these are the kinds of moves that you make that ultimately help the team. You find a disgruntled but talented player, and if you can get him for a later pick, that's probably a better use of resources than trading for a washed up first round rookie, right? Like I think these are the kinds of players that you have to keep your eye out for, who can help you go from a good team to a great team. You've kind of got to dredge the free agents in the trade market, but I think these are the types of deals that you got to look out for. So I would love it if a contender traded for Budda Baker, especially the Packers, who have a pretty sore need at safety after Amos walked, and the Eagles, who lost both of their safeties, I believe. I think can
the Eagles even afford
I'd love
him?
it if both of those teams could take him. Could the Eagles afford him? I think they could still. I think they could make it work.
I feel like they have so many good players. I'm just like, where does the money go?
And it may be okay if they let him walk. Like, you will play here behind a really good front seven. A lot of our defensive backs benefited from it last year with Slay, a veteran, and Bradbury, a veteran. Like, let it benefit you, contend for a ring this year, and maybe we don't have to give him a new contract and he hits the open market with his value increased, you know? Maybe they wouldn't have to pay him. Those two teams make sense. I would say if I was those two, I'd try to get something done if he really wants out. And if I'm the Cardinals, like, you're going to be terrible with or without Budda Baker, so
might as well just trade him.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be tough for the Eagles from a value play because how much is it going to cost to trade for Budda Baker? Probably a lot. And
really, he's in his 30s. I feel like it would be one of those that maybe he goes for a little bit less than he should or less than people expect.
Okay. For some reason, I had it in my head Budda Baker was younger than that.
Is he? I feel like he's been around forever. He's 20. He's 27. Oh my God.
Yeah. I was like, there's no way.
That's such a crucial mistake by me. I thought he was like way older than that. Okay.
No,
I had Budda Baker as like wise beyond his years.
Like this is around. Yeah. He has that kind of air about him. He's only been playing since 2017.
He's got that wise aura.
Okay, I'm putting myself on mute for that.
Well, we're about to talk about basketball here soon, so you might want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I guess so. What's going on in the NBA world? What series have we been?
We're recording this later because we wanted to watch Lakers Grizzlies. That was a crucial mistake because now we're all sad and depressed because our glorious king LeBron James could not defeat the Grizzlies without Ja Morant.
He's not my glorious king while the Suns are in the playoffs, man. We got other fish to fry. But yeah, that was a game that was kind of a bloodbath. Like literally, Anthony Davis cut up his face multiple times. I saw lots of people grabbing their groin and face and ankles. It was a street fight. Matt, what did you make of the Grizzlies tying the series 1-1? How are you feeling?
I mean, you got to be pretty proud of them. They always step up when Ja Morant is out. I mean, this doesn't help that Grizzlies are better when Ja Morant isn't playing narrative for sure. I don't know. I always feel like there's some games you go into it and the Lakers don't want it enough. And there's a lot of games where the Grizzlies go in and they look like they want it more than anyone, right? So tonight you kind of saw two polar opposites. And there's some X's and O's stuff that really killed the Lakers. Like too much of the game plan was getting Anthony Davis the ball. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, he's been really cooking towards the end of the season and he's had some good games in the regular
Jackson
season.
In foul trouble. I think that's also a big part of their plan is like, let's just have AD. They threw so many lobs to him in the post where I thought they were going for an alley-oop and they were just putting it on the top shelf for Davis, who'd immediately go up. And I think they were just like, let's get Jaren Jackson out of here and then win like we did versus the Timberwolves when Cat went out. Like we'll be in striking distance.
But I thought they did a bad job of getting the ball to Anthony Davis, and I thought the Grizzlies did a good job of like denying him easy looks. I mean, I don't disagree with, feeding AD. Okay, fair enough, but sometimes like he doesn't have leverage properly, or he's like kind of closed off, and they're like, "Well, we're just gonna throw it up there," and then he's got to go way up to go get it, and he comes down.
There were a lot of moments like that.
Yeah, and then he's not in a good position, and I just thought that was really bad basketball. And you've got D'Angelo Russell out there who, a lot of times when guys are worse in the playoffs, schematically, there's something about it. And I feel like the number of guys where it's like they just get in the playoffs and they just play worse. They do the same stuff. They just do it worse. It's really not it's not anywhere near as high as people make it out to be on Twitter. But dude, like D'Angelo Russell, I have no other way to explain it, man. He's just just throwing the ball away. And the Lakers had some ugly turnovers, and then you've got that fast break. You got a nice 2-on-1 going and you double dribble or dribble off your own leg. People are like, he didn't double dribble. It went off his leg. Okay. That's not any better, man. You're an NBA point guard. What are we talking about? So it's just
I feel the same way about them. I wonder where their explosiveness comes from so far. Because obviously AD is just a battering ram and I almost said Odell. LeBron is still plenty athletic, but I just don't know who blows by people and has like a ton of juice on the team. Like there's some really great basketball players and hustle players, and you drive on them and it's just, they are very smart. The help defense is usually impeccable. They get so many blocks. Like there's a lot of good things about the Lakers, but explosiveness is not one of them. And I almost wonder if that's why they shot so many more free throws than any other team, is because like they don't get a ton of separation at the rim, and like usually their shots end up contested. Like I don't know if you've ever thought that or disagree with it, but I'm like, who really? It's Schroeder and it's like D'Lo are like their quick guard. Are their guards that they give a ton of minutes, and it's like those guys are a little unserious to be like your juice. Like I I'd love to see them with someone with a little bit more high end, like top end athleticism.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I really think is true about the Lakers is like, dude, LeBron is very well past prime. I feel relatively strong about this. He's still very good, but man, there's just a lot of possessions where he's just throwing up a three. And I think this year, I could be wrong, he took the most threes ever in his career. And the positive way you could look at that is, well, maybe he's just trying to like, okay, well, 3-pointers are just more popular, so of course he's shooting more. But I think it has far more to do with he just doesn't have the energy he once did. And on the defensive end, that's even more apparent. I mean, he's just not a good defender. So I don't know. I also want to give a shout out to Xavier Tillman, who played some awesome basketball today. And he was a big part of why they were able to do such a good job handling Anthony Davis. Why I think they won on the boards tonight. And without Steven Adams, you're kind of looking, okay, they didn't win on the boards at all tonight. So I'm totally lying, but they hustled better. Maybe that's what I'm considering.
Let's talk about the Grizzlies for a second, because we give so much attention to the Lakers and we pick them, but let's say the Grizzlies win this series. What has to happen for them to win the West, do you think? And do you see the bones
Not
for
much.
that at all?
Yeah, I see the bones for it. I don't think I don't think the answer to that is anything other than like there's just no top dog in the West right now. I mean, even like the Nuggets have their problems. The Suns haven't looked like unstoppable or anything, even though I think they're very good. And I don't want to disparage the up 2-0 Kings right now, but like they're certainly not unbeatable either.
No, they're unbeatable, man. That's for damn sure. Light that fucking beam.
But so I think, and that's a crazy. You're watching a 2 and a 7, and I think both fan bases reasonably expect to be in the Western Conference Finals. It's just a very weird West, man. It's just a weird year. So I totally buy into the Grizzlies. It's not to say that I necessarily think they're going to win the series even. I think it's still very close. I think, both teams played kind of an ugly game today a little bit. Although if you're without your number one player, I don't know if we blame the Grizzlies, but
it's really interesting to see. Every game no game can be their best game. They got to ugly win them all.
That's true. Well, there is something about getting the ugly wins, man. You got to be able to do it because it happens. I don't know, though. I mean, the Lakers are still up in the series if you want to count. Now that, they went 1-1 on the road. That's good. Now they've got home court. And man, I would be mad if I was a Lakers fan because they could have easily won this game if Anthony Davis had been anything like himself. But I don't know.
He was like himself on defense, though. I got to give him that. Like, he was flying around. He had one of the best defensive sequences I have seen. And it's happened multiple times. And it's funny how apparent it is. And I'm sure all NBA fans know this, but like diehard ones. But I have gotten a kick out of how much better the defense in the playoffs has been than in the regular season. Like Anthony Davis tonight with the sequence where he blocked, was it Jaren Jackson Jr. taking a 3? And then once the Grizzlies got the ball back, he came flying in and blocked it from behind in about a minute and 30-second interval. And it was pretty insane to watch his defensive ceiling like that. And then Darius Garland was so good hounding people last game. It's like, I just don't feel like I see sequences like Garland.
Oh, I thought
so I was like, am I forgetting someone's name? No, like it really is different. And
yeah,
I'm sure everyone knows that, but
I don't know. If I'm a Grizzlies fan though, I don't feel bad, even though we went 1-1 at home. I feel like with the Lakers, dude, it's just if you really hustle and you grind on defense, eventually their offense always reverts back to standing around. It always reverts back to getting lazy. And it's, the thing is that the Lakers offense has never been that good. Even in 2020, it was good. It wasn't that good, man. Now, you had a much better version of Anthony Davis and LeBron, so it worked. But this team has always been like defense first. When they won the title, they won because their defense was so good. It wasn't because their offense was some unstoppable force. And I don't know. I almost wonder if they've made a mistake by hiring all these defensive head coaches because, like, yeah, you have a great defense, but of course you did back in 2020 when you had perfect defensive personnel. Like, they were totally stacked across the board. And now I feel like their defense is still pretty good, but LeBron has slowed down and you lost some of your best guys. And I still feel like the series is very winnable for them. But I just wish that they had a little bit more juice on offense. I wish they moved around a little bit more. It's not as bad as it was last year where it was like impossible to watch the games. But
I felt like a lot of possessions were like either going late into the shot clock or they were just getting straight up violations
for no reason, man. And I mean, I was watching this game and I had the Grizzlies announcers on. You should have heard how mad they were about uncalled 3-second violations. If you were listening, I hope you. It was hilarious, man, and it's true, dude. They're just kind of lethargic sometimes. I think that's why Austin Reeves feels like such a big deal because he's the exact opposite. Like, he's real good moving and he's young. You know, he's not 30 or whatever. But I don't know. I would say that even if you like. I also am worried about them staying healthy. Because I'm sorry if I'm talking about the Lakers a lot. Like, I'm rooting for the Lakers. I'm not hiding that I'm a LeBron guy, but dude, like, I can't take it with the Anthony Davis injury scares, man. It's just unbearable, dude. It's every single game, man.
He's like a little kid, you know. You'll send him out. Like, to go play, and they'll always come back like, oh, I skinned my knee, I skinned my palm, I fell down, I got a sunburn. Like, they'll always come back and say something like that. That's what it feels like sending Anthony Davis to go play a game of basketball. It's like, I just know he's going to come back and and it's not all his fault, like that he gets hit in the face or his arm gets hit in a weird way. It just is hilarious how often it happens. And at some point I can't help but wonder, it's like, is there something that you're doing wrong? I can't imagine that there is, but like, do you just...
Some people just know, like, have it like that.
Do you just like not know how to land? Maybe do you like not know how to protect yourself? I'm sure he does, but it just happens so often. I can't help but wonder.
Oh, I was looking at the wrong game, man. The Grizzlies did out rebound the Lakers by 2. I was right, even though my analysis is that they out rebounded them. I'll still take this win. Yeah, dude. I don't know, man. And also that jump ball where he got hit in the face, that was not a foul. That was not a foul, man. What are you supposed to do? I mean, Anthony Davis jumped way inside. Who was it? Bain? Was it Bain jumping up? Like, he put his arm straight up. I don't know. Maybe he just does a poor job protecting himself. But then I also like sometimes want him to be more physical. So I don't know what to think, man.
Right.
The Lakers are good, but they're frustrating. That's the most frustrating team ever. But
do you still think they'll come out of this series?
We'll see how they look next game. They look. Yeah. I think both teams playing their best ball. I think the Lakers are a little bit better, but I don't really trust the Lakers to play their best ball.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's
shout out David Roddy. Shout out Desmond Bain, and shout out Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he played well as well. It's a good team. It's yes. They're a good team. I think like my thoughts watching Desmond Bain, and I'm sorry, we'll move on to this series. I'm like, I'm not sure if he's the most talented player, but Desmond Bain shows the upside of someone who simply is aggressive and is like willing to take tough shots. And like, he'll get kind of hounded for his shot selection sometimes, or like, you know, the Dion Waiters quote. I always see him getting a ton of hate. But there's something to be said for someone who is just like willing to try difficult things, because you're one of the best basketball players in the world, and sometimes it works. And I was appreciating watching Desmond Bain run around tonight.
Dude, it's just nasty. It's just nasty. I'm looking at this box score now. How did you got to come out with a win in this if you're the Lakers? Shout out Xavier Tillman, man. What a game. Also, dude, something that was frustrating me so much. No hate towards Luke Kennard. All right. He got played like entirely off the court, like whoever for the Heat with the defense stuff. Like the defense is just not there. If he's on there, man, you got to go after him like consistently, dude. They do not attack that. Like that should be, you've got multiple guys out there who can go at him every single time. You should have a lot of guys who can go after him every single time. And I just felt like maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I just felt like they never tried to get the switch on him or they didn't do it enough, in my opinion. Because I mean, he's an amazing 3-point shooter, and even then, it was tough for him to get minutes for the Clippers at one point, just because the defense was so rough. But he was hustling tonight. I don't want to.
He was hooping tonight. He was kind of going off.
Let me tell you something. He hits those 3-pointers, man. Those 3-pointers. He broke
someone's ankles, and hit a mid-range fadeaway too. He changed direction real quick. It's
offensively, he is nice. I get why the Grizzlies play him, but dude, it's like. You got to make that tough on them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Those are my thoughts. Shout out to the Grizzlies. Shout out to Xavier Tillman.
Have you watched Sacramento Golden State?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that series?
The best team in the NBA.
What were my thoughts on that? I think the thing that's been most surprising and what has made it a 2-0 series when many didn't expect it to be like that, including myself, is the Kings have just been playing fantastic defense. They've been hustling really hard. And I almost wonder if teams don't try very hard in the regular season, and it makes it kind of hard to judge how good teams are defensively now because, I mean, just load management has become such a big thing. But it's ridiculous what they've been doing. I had some real strong thoughts about this the other night. Now I've kind of lost them. But
were they about the Warriors or the Kings mostly?
They're about both of these teams, man.
Well, you think about that. I just want to say, any Warriors fan complaining about the Draymond suspension needs to get a grip. This is my main take on this series right now. Unfortunately, go back and watch the play, and you will see him just totally stomp on this guy. He puts all of his weight down on his foot. It looks like a toddler stomping his foot. He did it. He lost his temper and he stomped on somebody. It's okay. But you also get suspended for doing things like that. And I just don't know why that was so controversial on Twitter today. It's yeah, he really stepped on him hard with his.
Is Sabonis okay? Because I know he got X-rays and stuff.
He's questionable.
Yeah.
I think he has some sternum problem.
And I get that he kind of was a little questionable on the fall. I'll give that to the Warriors fans, that it kind of did look like he tugged Clay's jersey and flopped. And he was covering his face, but maybe he knew Draymond's foot would get caught in and it would annoy him. But even if he did do all that, you can't stomp on his chest and bruise his sternum. Yeah, that is obviously going to get you suspended. Sorry that Sabonis was slightly more crafty with his dirtiness. I don't know what to tell you. Obviously the one that wasn't as blatantly obvious didn't get suspended. If you think they were both equally bad, you can't say they were both equally, glaring. So yeah, tough luck, Draymond. You punched your teammate Jordan Poole. Everyone, no one is giving you the benefit of the doubt that you're oh, I just was putting my foot down and he happened to be there. Dude, no. This is totally the kind of thing that you do.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't want to talk about this series exclusively the Kings have just been dominant. I know they're 2-0 right now. But both of these games down the stretch were winnable for the Warriors. Game 1 just didn't break their way, and then Game 2 here. I mean, they could have won that game, and then Draymond Green got himself suspended. They have absolutely nobody else to play at the 5 other than Kevon Looney with 5 fouls, and then shockingly, they can't defend anything anymore, and the Kings run away with it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That's really the killer part about the Draymond stuff is they are screwed, man. They have to have him. They cannot survive without him. And it opens a larger question of like, even if the Warriors win this series, like, what are they going to do after this year if they're not going to pay Draymond? I'm so interested because defensively, it's not going to work. They don't have a serious five. They whiffed on Wiseman. Looney is cool when he's not like the big interior defender of your team. And I understand, when you're playing with 5 fouls down the stretch there and your team has literally no one else to put in. I mean, it was going to be like Kuminga in at the 5 or whatever the hell, or like Klay Thompson. They're going to put Jordan Poole out there at the 4.
Yeah, do the Warriors just like not have a center on the roster? Is that like...
No, they do. It's just not a good one.
They go super small ball, man. Well, they're not super small ball, but they play Looney a lot, and then they play Draymond, at the 5 otherwise, and then they go with some small lineups. But I don't know. I'm just not a fan. I also don't really trust anybody that much offensively outside of Curry. I mean, when he's off the court, it can get pretty scary, pretty fast. And that's been a problem for them really for a lot of the season. I don't think anybody is, I'll say this, I don't think anybody's stupid. You see a lot of people on Twitter being like, oh, well, we knew this in the regular season. We all saw the Kings were better. Why do people expect that to change for the Warriors? The Warriors were like 8 games or 6 games worse record wise, and they missed Curry for like 30 games and Wiggins missed a ton of time. Like, that's not that crazy, but I think the Warriors are just a little bit more shallow. If Poole's not on, you really don't have a lot of scoring off the bench. Wiggins is just coming back, and then you have a Kings team that is a lot more respectable defensively. That's making things tough.
And the Kings are like the best atmosphere in the league right now. It seems like their games are like super rowdy, and the Warriors suck on the road. And I don't know if like crowd noise, I don't think they're getting spooked. I guess they're an old team, like they're an old veteran team. I don't think they're like scared of the bright lights or anything. So, but it's like just the best home field advantage in the league versus the worst road team. And they got swept in Sacramento. So who knows why? Who can explain why? Maybe it's just completely
they just can't handle the beam.
I truly don't know specifically what it is. I'm sorry if that makes me a casual. Why they just play so bad on the road? Like, I get it, it's harder to play on the road, but like, what makes them so specifically terrible on the road? If any Warriors fans know exactly what it is, because I just don't follow them enough, I think, to really
and
get
they're such
that.
a veteran team. It's not different than the one that won the final last year. Like, it's not a different coach. It's largely the same pieces. Like, Curry has been around the block. Draymond has been around the block. These guys have all been around for almost a decade now. I liked to think it was just pure chance and it was going to bounce back, maybe even towards the mean as the series wear on.
Right. I thought it was that they rested guys a little bit more on the road, and then some like luck just kind of went against them, and it's like, that's just kind of the way it broke this year. But let's not read too much into something without a real good explanation.
And that could still be the answer, and then the Kings are just better, like,
yeah, that's also true
answer.
But it's like, I don't know. Let me ask you this. When's the last time the Warriors lost a playoff game to a team that shot 24% from 3? I can't believe it. And it's like, this is a team that's won 4 titles.
Yeah.
You know what? It probably is. It probably is LeBron in the 2015 finals. Yeah. It's probably like game 1 of the 2015 finals or something, man.
Or
maybe JR was going crazy. Maybe Shumpert was hitting some threes. I don't know. He wasn't.
It sounds like something the LeBron Cavs would do in a game against the Warriors.
You guys were talking this whole time about like, the Warriors are bad on the road. There are only 3 teams that have won fewer games on the road than the Warriors. And
it's
Detroit,
bad.
the Spurs, and the Rockets.
That's
what are
we talking about, dog?
One of these things is I'm glad that you're realizing how fucking bad it is.
This is so bad.
It's really an outlier. Yeah, it's very funny. like I said on the amp, the Warriors, Draymond and Clay specifically, are the guys who are just not going to shut up about this dynasty 20 years from now. They're going to be like, some team is going to win a ring, and like the next day it's going to be like, Klay Thompson doesn't believe the 2034 Bulls are as good as the Warriors were. It's like, no one asked you, dude. They're just going to keep saying it forever and ever. We cannot let them get 5 rings. So I'm perfectly fine if they kick it and go Kings, even though I picked the Warriors.
Holy shit.
I'm
That's
also
such
glad.
a big differential too.
Yeah, they've just been bad on the road. I'm also glad that Malik Monk is hitting some big shots. The Kings just have like some real nice role players, man. I really love Malik Monk. I love Kevin Huerter. I love Davion Mitchell, who is playing well. So, and Fox has definitely become. I know he went 2 for 10 last night. I don't want to hype him up too much, and I really do think one of the things that killed the Warriors in this game, like, was I mean, just how many like dumb turnovers did they have? It doesn't make any sense, but.
Yeah,
the Kings just have so many guys who are like, they can hit a big shot, you know. Maybe that's really basic analysis, because that's just what happened. They had a few guys hit some big shots, but they have a lot of dudes who can reasonably put the ball on the floor. That's what makes them so dangerous offensively. That's a better way to word it.
That is a good way to word it. That is a good way to word it. They're all dynamic. It's just a very dynamic team, always flowing and can punch you in the mouth in a lot of different ways and quickly.
And they were the exact opposite of that. I remember I was looking at their roster a year ago, and I'm like, dude, they've got like 2 players who can shoot, like entirely on the whole team. And one of them was Halliburton. That's why I thought it was such a crazy trade, man. I was like, dude, how are they going to find the spacing?
And then they were like
literally
the best. They're like the best scoring team in the NBA this year.
Yeah, they're super fun. Let's go to the East, though. And speaking of guys who can hit big shots, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell were big parts of a big win against the New York Knicks. I don't know how to feel about this series. I started out worry about the Cavs. I tweeted out that the Knicks are special, and then I immediately deleted it once they went down 20 because I'm a coward,
but I
don't stand my basketball takes that much.
I saw the gears turning in your head for that one. I know you're thinking like, you know, every year it seems
Brunson
like there's a team. There's like a team that makes the Eastern Conference Finals that kind of isn't supposed to be there. I was wondering if that was your logic. And it's like the Knicks kind of got it right now. And the last couple of years, there's been a team that's just got it that makes it to the conference finals.
Yeah, but I was thinking like the Bucks are hurt, and the Knicks just. I know the name value isn't high with like. Maybe I'm speaking just for myself here, but it's almost difficult to like imagine that Brunson and Randall are that good, but they really are, you know, and it just took me a little bit for that to like really click in my head. Is like, man, these guys are really, really, really playing like superstars right now. So, and then once I kind of thought about that, I'm like, man, they got quickly off the bench and they were up on Cleveland and they beat them game 1, and Cleveland's really good too. So it's like, man, if they can stand up to Cleveland like this, I'm calling my shot now. They can beat an injured Milwaukee team and go to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then the Cavs just absolutely.
And then they finally started really getting at it on defense. They started playing like they have the best defense in the NBA. And if Garland is going to be defending hard and you've got that stuff going for you, all of a sudden, you know, it's an entirely different game, and they're very hard to beat.
Did you see Garland try to posterize? Who was it? And it's like, he does not usually do that, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe?
I think it was. He like really rose up and tried to poster somebody, and he's feeling it. You know, when you got a guy like doing something out of the ordinary in terms of aggression, and he's playing that type of defense, like you could really tell Garland was in a crazy special zone where last year and in years previous, he wasn't quite feeling it like that in the playoffs, at least. Then you bring in a super proven playoff performer in Donovan Mitchell. And like those two alone, Karis LeVert played very well. You know, Mobley was a little bit disappointing on the offensive end so far, but, you know, turned it on defense, like you mentioned. It's a tough team to beat. There's a reason that we like them so much before the season, and you could really see them click at the end of that game, and that was super cool.
I mean, I still have some questions about them. I mean, ultimately, I mean, the defensive adjustments kind of just came down to like, dude, we gotta. Well, this is probably not true, but I just thought it was a total different level of energy. But offensively, you got to realize, man, that like the Cavs spacing really stinks, man, because Mobley can't shoot, Allen can't shoot, and their wings are questionable. Like Isaac Okoro played 3 minutes because it's just like, dude, we can't. Sorry, man, we can't survive a wing that doesn't shoot like that. And granted, I think even spacing regardless, Garland was playing so well and hitting so many tough shots where it's like they can survive a lot of games. That's why they've been so good this year. But it comes down to, I mean, they've shortened their rotation up so much too. Like Karis LeVert played 40. And that's a big reason as to why things were working for him a little bit more, is because LeVert got out there and he was actually playing a pretty good game, and he's a lot more respectable on defense than like Osman, who was just getting cooked by Brunson at the end of game one. He didn't see the court nearly as much, but if I don't want to say that LeVert is like the X factor, but him being respectable on offense is absolutely a need. It has to be like that. And if they're going to win the series, it's going to be like this. It's going to be LeVert drawing enough defensive attention to make things work. Whole bunch of screens from Allen and Mobley, because you got to clear up the paint as much as you can. And then you need Garland and Mitchell to just keep doing their thing. And you have to go crazy on defense. You got to be the number one defensive team in the league.
Don't let Cleveland Twitter hear you say that the key to success is Karis LeVert.
He's got to play good, because he's up and down. That's what's going to be tough. It's like he is so hot and cold. You need 4 hot games in the 7-game stretch, man.
The X factor of every team is just the 4th best player on it, or like maybe the 5th. If you just go down the list and just pick the 4th best, you need the 4th best player to play very well. And whoever's 4th best player plays better wins the game. That's not definite. That's definitely not true. But
I see what you're saying, though. It's like when you have somebody who's so hot and cold like that, it's like, the difference between them playing good and playing bad, like, you know, for the most part,
there's always someone on the threshold. There's someone who's always on a threshold where they could have, you know, first percentile games. And, you know, LeVert is one of those guys. And whoever is like the 4th best or 5th best player on the roster who can occasionally, you know, reach the level of a high-end starter, that's always the X factor. And it's always like the 4th or 5th best player on the team. If you want to give predictions, just rank the best players on the team and choose number 4 and say, this is the X factor for this team. And you'll get 1 million views. They'll be like, that's a great point, dude. He is the X factor. He's not one of the stars, but he's not one of the bench players. He is totally the X factor. That's the X factor.
He's starting, but he's not making $40 million.
You're just an X factor. We should just start calling that tier of players X factors, because who knows what you'll get. Embiid's not an X factor. He's just a factor.
But they're down to like a 7-man rotation, Cleveland, in this game, which is crazy because the game was so far apart, and they just like everyone just had their starters in anyway. And who was it?
Randall.
Randall
almost died because Tibbs had him down 20 at the end.
NBA teams need to be like really serious about not doing that, dude. I mean, you saw what happened to Embiid last year. Doc Rivers did the same thing and it crushed him, man. So that's kind of beside the point.
On this Brandon Staley shit. But yeah, I would also like to put in one quick word about my Suns, who tied it 1-1. Devin Booker is such a dog on defense now, and it's so awesome to watch him play defense recently. But especially in this series, I feel like he has taken it up a notch and been like a true two-way star. He dropped like 30 something. I can't remember the exact 38 and played just incredible defense in that game against the Clippers. And it's what you get KD and Booker for. Like, they were down heading into the half by a decent amount. And on the last 21 possessions, they scored, I think, like 23, 24 points. And KD and Booker assisted on 21 of them, I think is the stat I read. And at the end of the game too, like, they were closing out the halves and not only pulling the team back up until that 3-point first half buzzer, and also putting the game away at the end. And they can just rip your heart out. And it's a little bit tough when you're reliant on big mid-range twos, like the first game, they just weren't falling. There was a lot of open mid-range looks, especially at the beginning of that game, that were just bricking. And it's a tough way to live. And you are susceptible to just some really ugly performances when you are just on a diet of the hardest shot in the game. And they will always be susceptible to losing when that's their style. But it's really hard to guard. And when they're shooting right, it is frightening. But the Clippers have Kawhi. The Clippers have Kawhi, who I'd always think is like the best player whenever I watch him in the playoffs. I'm like, who is better than this guy?
You know what? I totally get that take. That's one of those ones where I see every once in a while someone will say like Kawhi is the best player. And like, I'm not saying I agree, but if you just watch the playoffs, man, I'd get where you're coming from. Dude,
yeah, he's just like an assassin, man. Every big shot, he's got to be, I don't know what the numbers on this are, but he's got to be one of the clutchest players in the league. It feels like when it really comes down to it and Kawhi's got the ball in his hands, I see what the old NBA players were talking about, like the fear, like players don't fear LeBron. That sparked that whole debate.
Players fear
I
Kawhi
fear
Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard. I'm scared of that dude, man. When he has the ball and is like snaking his way around and the shot clock is winding down and it looks like you're about to get a good stop, that's when I'm just at my most nervous, because I'm like, he's about to hit this fadeaway and then clamp somebody. He is something else, man. So as long as they've got him, they've got the best player in this series, and that might be true all the time. When you really watch Kawhi, you don't get the chance to in the regular season very often, but when he's locked in, it's pretty
Special.
scary. I'm very frightened.
I'm very afraid.
I'm so afraid. So afraid.
And dude, Westbrook, man. Where has this Russell Westbrook been all these years? He has been, I know he shot poorly last game. And then he kind of shot like awesome this game.
19.
It doesn't matter, man, but he's mad on defense, or he's really crushing it defensively. Obviously he had that big block, but hey, and he had a couple threes.
He's blocked KD twice.
Yeah.
In the series.
Oh, maybe he is mad.
That stop on Booker to win the game was cold as hell in the first game. I can't even lie. That was dope as shit. And then he went into the Suns like VIP fan room and yelled at that kid and his son trying to eat a piece of ham directly off the plate. Did you see that video? He walked into like the Suns. It was like he walked into like the Suns suite and there was this guy in there. And he like was like, watch your mouth, like watch what you say to me. Just yelling at this fan. And this fan stands up and starts yelling. And the camera is like caught this very viral moment. And like his son or this little kid is lifting up his entire plate and eating the ham off of it.
I think that's fine.
Do not say you think that's normal. There's ham on your plate and you're lifting
I told
it
you
up
guys
your
for
mouth
Easter,
and,
my parents ordered me a ham. Welcome to my world.
Yeah, but how did you eat it?
I ate some sandwiches, but then there were some parts that weren't sliced, and I said I got it myself a little chunk. And the real question is, where are they selling that in the stadium? Ham chunk, $15. I don't. I think that's
you said it's in the VIP box, so it's probably like buffet style. They have like a ham out.
Oh yeah, okay, you're right. I'm thinking about ham concessions,
just like
which I would go crazy for, man. Yeah,
sliced
like it's pretzels are only okay. You have to go get like nachos or something. Nachos are only okay. Imagine if they had like, if we could change the standard of what concessions were to like a ham sandwich or something.
Let me get some broiled lobster.
I'm Matt Spunauer, and this is my Shark Tank audition.
They should start selling
the product,
hams.
a company that delivers gourmet seafood to fat for the small price of $30, $40.
Let me get some
shrimp flambe.
Actually, this is good because I have a personal story to go with this. We were watching the Vanderbilt UAB NIT game when we were in Nashville.
Oh my God.
And they have the wonkiest stadium Vanderbilt does. I got some nachos and the meat was miscolored, and I got some like barbecue nachos with like miscolored meat. I'm like, this is nasty.
Yeah. It looked
and let me tell you, in what way? Like a color you would find on the rainbow?
It was like gray.
Or
it was like gray,
okay. Man. It was like really gray. Okay. Like the Pixies from Fairly Odd Parents that got to it or something. And let me tell you something. I'm sitting there watching the game. I'm like, yeah, I'd rather have a ham right now. I would easily take a ham chunk over the Vanderbilt NIT nachos any day of the week.
Just like a grocery store in the stadium. You can pick out like
Vanderbilt.
That's a great idea. Dude, that's an awesome idea. You're making you're making a joke. What if they had a 7-Eleven like just in the stadium? That'd be perfect. You'd have so many more options. You could get like some chapstick if your lips were chapped or something. It's like you leave, oh, my lips are chapped. This happens to me every day of my life. You can just go get the chapstick right there. That'd be
convenience
perfect.
Store. There could be like a microwave.
Do you have any idea what the markup on that 7-Eleven would be?
Well, that's true for everything. Who cares?
Bro, you'll get that chapstick's gonna be like,
it'd be worth it. It'd be really convenient. Let me tell you something. Let's say I pay $100 to go watch this game or whatever. I'm watching some big game. I realize 3 minutes into the first quarter, my lips are chapped. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, this chapstick is $8. I'll never do that. I'll be like, well, I might as well so I can enjoy the game and my day isn't ruined. Yes, I would easily pay the $8 there. 7-Eleven in the stadiums is a fantastic idea.
I'm glad you think so. The other thing they should do is have like toll microwaves where you can bring whatever the hell you want and then just warm it up at the stadium. If you put like quarters in the microwave, you could have.
I don't trust
a Salisbury steak like in the microwave.
I don't trust, but someone's gonna. I mean, you've been into a stadium bathroom, man. A stadium microwave is going to be just as nasty, man. I have no faith in the general public to keep a microwave anything other than horrifying.
There are still several logistics to be worked out with this plan, but I just imagine someone bringing in like just leftovers, and everyone in the stands is like their lunch. Yeah, they would have like their lunch boxes out, and they'd just be like eating, the lasagna the missus made.
The middle school lunch.
There's like a whole assortment of shit. Just like someone's got hamburger helper, and someone's got like a full like leftovers from Thanksgiving, and someone's got just like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Man. Yeah, you could trade.
My mom packed me graham crackers. Oh, my mom packed me Gushers. If you want to,
yeah, everyone could just bring their leftovers or whatever they want from home, and then pay to warm it up. Anyway.
We got a little off topic. I don't even. How did we get here?
I don't.
We're talking about the Suns ham chunk video, and I was. That poor kid though. That poor little dude, man. He's sitting there. It's like he gets caught on camera because his dad or whatever is yelling at Russell Westbrook, and not only does he have to be in that video, on top of that, he gets caught with the ham chunk. It just doesn't get much worse than that.
And you're getting yelled at by Russ. And you can't
Russell
even say
Westbrook
anything.
Hates you.
Too much ham in your mouth.
And Twitter is getting mad at you for your ham chunk. That sucks.
You're getting put on Barstool and fucked up looking food.
What the hell is wrong with this kid?
Imagine if you wanted to yell at Westbrook or like have some sort of retort. You're going to call him Westbrook or be like big talk for someone who's shot 3 free. But you're like, wait a minute. I've got ham in my mouth. I
can't.
He just like barges in and yells at you. You're like taking a big bite of a burger. Like, well, hold on. Wait just a second. As you like swallow and then like just call him. This is off the rails. It's time to end this show.
Yeah. Oh, what a 2-year anniversary episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back with more content here shortly. NFL draft is what? A little over a week away. Yeah. Almost here. Very exciting stuff. Very excited to get into. We'll do a live stream we'll have to get prepped for that here kind of soon, I guess. But until then, thank you all for tuning in. And as always, from the boys over at Stay Hot, we'll catch y'all on the flippity flop.